for whom in the hospital sometimes you might have some prescription data or billing data that you can leverage on. And this, we believe, is about only 5% of the insights that can be eventually generated, whereas 95% of the clinical data that we need is all resting within the hospitals. And the hospitals actually don't have a incentivized model to actually share that data with industry partners, and thereby really transforming how patients are screened and enrolled into clinical trials. Now, I felt that pain from the end user's perspective as an oncologist. When I see a patient in clinic, my center itself runs about 70 trials. I don't have an automated system of identifying which of those 70 trials are relevant for the patient right in front of me. And so what usually happens amongst all the oncologists is that because we just don't have the time, or you could call it lazy to some extent, we typically wait for all standard therapies to finish before we even bat an eyelid about what those trials are. So from that perspective, 2 years ago, we decided how can we make this process for doctors to find the right trials for their patients. So we developed two things as a result of that. Firstly, we created a very oncology-specific and oncology-nuanced approach to trial matching. If I have patient data in a structured format, what we have done on our end is to really clean up the global cancer trial registries and restructure that eligibility information. And then we can match patients to the right trials instantly. So the doctors today, when they see a patient and they use our tool, they can actually see the most relevant results instantly. Now, in the reverse, what we can now do for the hospital partners who have databases of patients is that they can use that same matching technology and identify which of these existing trials that pharma is conducting elsewhere can be actually brought into their trial site simply because they now have a ready population of patients they can access. And separately, if you think about it from the perspective of a real-time pool of patients who are prepared to get into trials, it is also a very useful feasibility assessment tool, where if you are a pharma or biotech and you need very specific pools of patients, and today you don't actually know where those patients are, and you're always leveraging on historical data of patients who currently don't exist. Now with this tool, we can provide you that information that tells you, I'm going to start trial X in hospital Y because they have a pool of patients here, we know how many they have, and they fit a particular molecular profile. So today, we've got this technology piece as the center of an ecosystem effort. Because when we tried to actually put it out there for individual patients, we realized in Asia, patients don't look for trials like that. They usually just leave it to their doctors to find trial options. Yep. So we worked very closely with the hospitals to get the technology piece connected or adopted rather in their own clinical trials program. So to do that at scale, we actually work together with the Ministry of Health Singapore and the key cancer hospitals in Singapore as well, where today they are all committed to actually pump data in of their cancer patient profiles. And the Ministry of Health has actually set aside a budget to actually build a data infrastructure for all their cancer hospitals to participate. So today, as a result of this work, we actually launched the ecosystem only in September, but we've already had data dumps of more than 1,000 patient profiles on the system. We have 15 stakeholder partners that also include Roche and Novartis in the ecosystem, and who are leveraging on the platform to get anonymized population level data insights that helps with their trial planning. Now, in 5 years' time, OncoShot wants to make a difference to 5 million patients in Asia. This could be 5 million patients whose profiles are provided via the hospitals and who are matched, or it could be very many different ways, but really we just want to get that impact to 5 million patients. How we work towards that is we already have a presence in India, where we have signed MOUs with one hospital, which is Colombo Cancer Center, and we are actually in talks with the top 5 cancer hospitals, which account for approximately 20% of the Indian cancer patient volume, with very advanced negotiations with them to onboard onto OncoShot, and for OncoShot to actually start Project India, which is a similar effort in India. India is a crazy animal, but we think that we are, taking the first steps towards that. What we really want to do, essentially, is, to have that first movers advantage in in Southeast Asia, India, possibly in East Asia, right, with the right partners at the ecosystem level. And we want to actually bring this technology to each of these governments and industries to say that look, we can actually support an entire ecosystem across stakeholders for petrochemical trials and also participate in a shared data ownership with you so that there's proper governance frameworks at that level of ecosystem partnerships. So when I read about J&J's work, I think that the thing that kind of interested me largely was, I never really thought about China and East Asia as a go-to market at this point, simply because it's actually a very, very competitive market. And whereas in Southeast Asia and India, we have really very strong networks at the top key opinion leaders in that space. And that's the reason why we've really cascaded down that pyramid very, very quickly. In the East Asian region, it's actually a lot more complicated. There are many, many other stakeholders. And so we didn't really kind of get into that. And I really wanted to kind of think about what are the possibilities or the opportunities that we could have, for example, with a very strong stakeholder partner like J&J. So where we are today is that the company is actually fairly early in the sense that we started our company in late 2018. Our MVP was out in about May 2019. We recently completed our our seed fundraise. We have raised a total of $2 million to date. The key
Singapore
investors,
dollars?
Singapore dollars.
Yep.
The key investor in our company is Enterprise Singapore, which is the government-based investment arm for early-stage companies. Of course, as I mentioned, other ministries are participating, like the Ministry of Health, with setting aside separate $1 million funding for the internal infrastructure. So that's not counted as our funds, but really there are quite a few stakeholders involved. So I'll stop at that.
Yeah, no, I've taken down notes. And I think, in terms of stage, vision, and desire in terms of what you want, I mean, it certainly is compatible with other startups and their journeys in J Labs, right? So I can talk about J&J, and I can talk about J Labs, and I can talk about how they actually intersect. So I guess from a J&J perspective, we do partner with startups at the J Labs kind of early on stage, which is startups that have either startups, meaning those at pre-seed, seed, pre-A, A, Series B, and even all the way up to IPO. But an IPO could even be just 15 people, for example. So we do kind of partner there. As the only J Labs in Asia Pacific, many startups use us as the gateway into Asia, not even necessarily China. So right now we have 46 startups incubating with J Labs, and 50% of them are not even mainland Chinese companies. So we do have startups in Singapore, Australia, Korea, North America, Belgium, Taiwan, and not all of them have a business model for China. All right, so that's not actually a criteria that you need to want entry into East Asia and North Asia. We have startups focused on the Australian market, startups focused on Southeast Asia, but still they find benefit of joining J Labs, because we're not just about the infrastructure at J Labs. We have selected criteria to bring you into J Labs. And I can talk about the criteria to onboard you in. But once you're in, this is, I think, where it becomes interesting. So first of all, of course, you can get access to the infrastructure. But if you're based in Singapore and your networks and what you're building is in India and in Southeast Asia, you probably, like many of the international companies, you probably just want to have the smallest footprint just to be able to be part of the ecosystem versus caring too much about the physical infrastructure that you're going to get on site. What we can do is provide you access is, of course, to everybody within J&J. I think that's kind of one of the unique things about J Labs is the mentorship that you can get. So whether if it's our clinicians in Southeast Asia sitting in Singapore or in China because you want some market research and you want to learn a little bit more about the regulatory networks, KOLs, You get mentorship basically across from the US to the regional to locally specifically, and so forth. Just basically, again, advising you. I mean, obviously you're in the field, so obviously you know what the unmet need is, but in terms of commercializing what you're building, it's also interesting to hear, how a pharma company can see value in terms of a partnership on this front. Also, I'll come back to the partnership with J&J. We do provide access to investors as well. So right now, we have 46 JLabs at Shanghai companies, and in 18 months, they've raised 1.9 billion US dollars. I just did the calculation this morning to close the year. 1.9 billion US dollars in 18 months across 46 companies. And as I said, some of them are pre-seed, seed, Series A. That's usually the sweet spot. Because this is about startups and accelerating your innovation or your platform to help it bring it closer to the patient and for commercialization and shortening that time frame. We also have access, of course, to our educational programming, putting companies in the spotlight, getting you more visibility unless you want to go stealth, and putting you into the media spotlight. So again, it pushes you on for partnerships. What we do know today, so when you join JLabs, it's actually a no strings attached model. So when you come, we take no first rights, no equity in your company. We take non-confidential information only. So you are free to partner whoever you want to. But what we do know is what happens is 1 in 5 of JLabs companies ends up partnering with J&J. All right. So either through pilot studies, collaboration agreement, even licensing or even a JV or an asset deal, we're able to do that. Obviously, there's selection criteria to come in, but then once you're in, I would say, yeah, the chances of getting a deal with J&J is 1 in 5. And if not, another 1 in 5 we know to date from the portfolio goes on to partner with other companies like Biogen, GSK, Novartis, Roche, Astellas, Amgen, Genentech, and so forth. And our selection criteria that we take, is pretty much you've got to be innovative. All right. So what you're going to do is, if you apply, is submit a non-confidential presentation, and we will look at, is it innovative? What is the unmet need? Look at the management team and look at the strategic alignment. And if you meet all those 4 criteria, we can push it through the selection process. Right now, 1 in 15 get accepted into JLab at Shanghai, and then after that, but right now, as I said, I think, you definitely, I have a question on, you mentioned breast cancer. Is that right now in terms of your kind of main focus, or is it more applicable to other types of cancer?
Sorry, I said my specialty.
Your specialty is breast cancer, but in terms of the company OncoShot,
the work of OncoShot is clinical trials, cancer clinical trials.
Okay.
But the main scope is
all right. And right now, your kind of partnership areas are in India and also Singapore.
Yes. So what is a bit different in Singapore is that we literally kind of set it up as a Singapore effort, where we have pharma genomics service providers and the government side. It's more of early engagement. We are at the final stages of onboarding the top hospitals, but not at the ministry level yet.
Yeah, and I think that's how you'll also go through geographical expansion. Every country will have its own regulatory hurdles, collecting the data privacy, etc. And China is no exception. We've had Singapore companies work on real-world evidence data, and they've made headway in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and so forth. Coming to China is a different animal, but again, through the help of J&J, we're able to help them navigate, even do a J&J deal with them to do some pilot studies with them. So, I mean, I would say that the fit is there. It's a question of putting it in through the application and working it so that, you know, we can work on, I always talk about the application process as the first stage. You got to pass it to be able to then access all the resources.
That's right.
And then
Can I just ask a bit more about the program itself? So one of the things that I was talking about what is really required in terms of physically time spent there? I mean, quite obviously, being able to connect will also mean that the ability for the tech person to be important as well. And now with COVID, so this is a challenge for not just myself but many other people. So how would that usually work out?
Sure. I mean, you only pay for the space that you use in your lab. All right. So,
Okay.
I mean, if you're already, so for 50% right now, you're sitting internationally, can't go into China. You only pay for the space that you use. So, my advice is, if you can just take one desk, take the smallest footprint that you need to be physically in J Labs to join the J Labs network, which is one desk. Okay? But we won't be we don't manage you. Okay, so I'm not going to, this is what you have to do, you have to report to me, you have to turn up on this day. We don't manage it like that. I mean, ultimately you're completely free. Again, this is an incubator. You as a startup pay us for the space that you take. Okay. And alongside of that you would get access to mentorship and everything else. But as I said, it's really up to you. If you want space on site, when borders, I guess, are removed, or when you want to grow people on site, so you may already have like a consultant sitting in China doing business development for you part-time, and then you might want to build up more and more people. You can add space. It's like Tetris. If you want to move from a desk to 2-person office to a 4-person office or a lab, you want to use to store samples, for example. You know, in our minor freezers, again, you pay for what you use. The contract itself is 20 days. That's your minimum commitment into that, with a 60-day automatic period, 60-day automatic renewal. But certainly this is like a school, it's not a program that where you have a fixed structure and we tell you what to do. Once you're in, some CEOs, they know exactly what they want to do, and they just want to put their heads down and just use the flow cytometer or the 3D printer. You know, other CEOs are grad students. They need a lot of help on building business plans, pitching to investors. Other CEOs want to fundraise, so we basically do all the help with fundraising. Others just want to elevate their profile, and so we work on marketing materials, communications with them. Other CEOs just again want the visibility that they are present in China, so it's easier to do business development with KOLs because or investors, because they want to know like what's your commitment to the country. And so all they have to say, well, you know, we got a place at J Labs at Shanghai. They won't know whether you've got a desk or 5 desks, you know, but they know that you're committed to the country and therefore interested in pursuing the collaboration.
So can I say that basically the key thing here in terms of how the association is defined is by the fact that once you're accepted into the program, that you have a space in the lab. And once you don't have that space, you're basically not within the program.
That's correct.
Right. Yeah. So with that space in JLab, we would be able to access the experts or the contacts within the JLabs network. Although it's separate from the physical space, obviously, we can actually leverage that relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, so well, you're not really paying for the space, you're paying for services, okay? That includes the space. But the minimum commitment is you need to have at least 1 desk. All right, so it's beyond the infrastructure, because I do think the mentorship, at least people have said to us, is priceless. Just the ability to see
which is
inside
usually the case, which is usually the case. The mentorship and the network that you can build from that. I think that's really what we're going for. I mean, I don't really care about the table there.
I mean, most people in COVID times, it's really about being able to still accelerate your science, do the Zoom calls. You need help on regulatory, or you basically want somebody who knows somebody on the regulatory side, or the preclinical side, or the government side, or kind of the setup side, or the insight from a pharma company on trial design. What do they look for? So you're the end user, like the customer. So again, like, I mean, as you yourself as a user, but how does it differ in different cultures in Japan or in Korea or in China?
I think one of the probably the most immediate things that I would look for is you see the biggest part of our market is really found in CROs who leverage on the data and the insights to run their trials through. And this is something that I think if we get into the program, it's like the immediate first thing that I want to explore. How could J&J benefit from this system as well in their clinical trials in Singapore, for example, or maybe outside? So I think it's a no-brainer. I'm happy to kind of put in a submission on our end. If you could send us all the relevant details, and we'll look at that.
Yeah, I would also, may I make a suggestion that before you actually even submit the slides, why don't you send me the slides first? I'll take a look at it to help increase the chances, because I want it to showcase, of course, I guess, the best self of your company. So I did mention the criteria. So you're going to be focusing on your competition, how you differentiate. I love the fact that you're already partnering with the Ministry of Health in Singapore. So, there's got to be a whole section of track record, existing partnerships. There's also got to be a great profile about yourself and your management team, or yourself. And how you're funded to date. That's in itself an achievement. 2 million seed from the enterprise, Singapore enterprise. Again, all this builds to your application, especially also what you want to achieve with JLabs. One thing I also will point out is we rarely accept applications with companies who have the end goal just to be a CRO. All right. So I understand maybe that is a goal to get revenue and then to
not to be a CRO.
It's a fair enough business model for many. Okay.
Yeah.
When you're offering a service of a network, a consortium that you want to then make the revenue and then be another quintiles, etc. But I think the true value that you would change, again, let's pass the exam, which is the selection process. The true value that J&J would see is how can it be applied to clinical trials in pharma for better decision making, cost effectiveness, accuracy, speed, etc. And I think if you come in from that angle, that's a much better angle to deliver than maybe what a VC would look for, is when is the return on investment and when are you going to hit profit. So
I guess we're all aligned on that, Sharon. So I'm glad that you think that way too, because during discussions with many VCs, it's like, do you think a CRO can buy you? And I'm like, I'm not even going for a farmer to buy me, because where I see this platform is really supporting an entire ecosystem of farmer partners, and the impact of that will be much greater than at the level of an individual CRO or pharmaceutical company. Right? So that's how we look at it.
Okay, good.
But glad you think about it that way.
Yeah, usually if we see the word service in a presentation, it wouldn't make it through, because I mean, again, our time to mentor companies, again, it's about patience. So as much as every company should deserve to get commercialized, it's about how do we bring better value to patients, consumers. And I think that's the angle that you want to address, the unmet need and what you can bring to better clinical trial design, accessibility, affordability, decision-making to clinicians, yourself being one of them. So I think, that's
when you say it that way, I mean, if I could reframe it from my perspective, it's really about how are we trying to make an impact here. And we are not obviously going to be able to make an impact if we are really going to plug ourselves into the same legacy mode of how things are being conducted, and really that's why I, as an oncologist, have taken this risk with my own career to kind of put this aside,
Absolutely.
and to take it from a different perspective. And I'm glad to hear that as well. So that's kind of put in something, and I'll share that with you, and hopefully I can hear your feedback as well.
Sure, and I'll just give you a next step timeline then. So I will send you later today or tomorrow just a reminder of the criteria and some recommendations specifically for you on the PowerPoint non-confidential slides. There's no limit to the slides. Once we agree on the slides back and forth by email, then you can submit into the system. It will then go to me. I will then send it out to 3 to 5 reviewers worldwide internally. They have their scorecard, and again, I'll repeat what the scoring system is. It's innovation science, unmet need, management team, and so forth. And then the scores come back to me. We meet together, the reviewers, and we basically have a 30-minute discussion on your company, and we essentially vote yes or no, are you in or out? From the time you submit online to this yes, no, whether you're in or out, we usually try and take 3 weeks, okay? However, I can tell you the Christmas period is coming up. So whether you submit online next week or you submit online in early January, it's going to make no difference.
Yeah.
I'll be upfront with you. It'll make no difference to the timeline. If we need further questions during the review period, I will reach out to you. But otherwise, if you don't also get through, we also do give you very constructive feedback on why you didn't get through. And it has been known that if you don't get through this time, a couple of years later, the companies apply again and they do get through, just because they've taken a different turn, pivoted, built more data, etc., and so on. So that is really the process. And then once you've got through, then we do a security check. All right, we want to make sure all our companies have had a background check on the companies, no fraud, etc. And we then choose your space. In my case, I would recommend you being in Singapore, taking the smallest, lightest footprint, because again, what you want is the networks, not the physical infrastructure, because you're not in China. And then usually it'll take maybe 3 to 4 to 5, even up to 6 weeks if you wanted to choose when you wanted to begin. All right, so we have flexibility on that. And then from there, you just have to ask them what you want. If you don't ask, we won't know how to help you. So we have a great team on the communication side, on the investor side, on the networking side, to explore with you, to see how we could help really accelerate what you want to do. So we won't do the science for you, but it's about turning your 5-year plan into a 2.5-year plan, or turning what you want to do in the next 18 months into 3 months. That's where I think we're able to help.
All right. Sounds great, Sharon. So I look forward to your materials, and then we'll probably get back and forth on the content of the slides as well.
Okay, thank you, Hiran. It was really a pleasure to meet you, and I'm glad we got in the call this side of the year. Thank you for your time. You must be busy.
Thanks for your time as well. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.